Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Guilty as Charged podcast, coming to you live after a disappointing loss to the Cardinals on part of the Chargers, ultimately coming up short 17-15. Uh, I don't know where we'll start, but man, it was a disappointing showing from the offense. But we have a bunch of things that could be talked about and charted as disappointing. Joining me to break it all down, of course, is my guy Tyler. Tyler, what's up, man? How are you doing tonight?
I personally am doing well. I'm living and breathing, got a roof over my head, I got a full belly. All that's good. But yes, I am very disappointed in this game for sure.
What did you eat tonight?
I made beef bulgogi. So I made that
Nice.
for myself, did some rice together, and I'll go eat after this too and just eat my sorrows away.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I made shrimp fried rice for what it was worth. It's turned
There
out
you go.
fantastic.
All
So
right, nice.
can't complain there.
Yeah.
Can certainly complain about the Chargers performance today. Was not obviously a must-win game per se, and obviously the
Mhm.
season has a lot of football left to be played. I have a few gripes that we can talk about, Tyler, but where do you want to start in this matchup after the Chargers coming up
Yeah.
short on Monday Night Football?
We had discussed it on the preview show, and I had written about this, so I need to bring it back up again because nothing changed. And that's that the Chargers are a bad red zone scoring team, and in particular, obviously, a bad fourth quarter team. Today, it wasn't necessarily the red zone, but they crossed the 50 several times, at least enough times to give Cameron Dicker 5 field goals. So
Yeah.
they crossed the 50 several times, and they didn't do anything with it. I mean, Herbert, yardage wise, he almost had 400 yards today. I mean, it was by far his best yardage total of the season.
Yeah.
And overall, he looked great. But this team, for several different reasons, could not score. And, great for Cameron Dicker. He was awesome. I'm glad they had him. He bailed him out of several situations, but they couldn't score. And that continues the trend of them not being able to score. Again, not tonight, not necessarily from the red zone, but they got 2/3 of the way there and just shit the bed the rest of the way. So it's very disappointing.
Yeah, the red zone offense, I think, is the right place, and there's a lot of issues that kind of lead to this. Quick shout out to Cameron Dicker. I mean, 59-yard field goal to start the game was huge. It was obviously the team record for distance wise. Cameron Dicker's a fantastic kicker at this point. You have full confidence in him kicking, which is great to see. But the red zone offense has so many issues. And my biggest gripe with it is the way that Greg Roman is calling plays in the red zone. And we are getting designer Will Dissly touches, who was great tonight. It was awesome to see, but it feels like the red zone, they get there and it's like, okay, if J.K. Dobbins can't get there on the ground and Ladd can't get open immediately, like they have no answers. There are no answers in the red zone, and it's just extremely frustrating to watch. I feel like I'm seeing the same 3 or 4 plays right now. It's a lot of mesh, it's a lot of crossers. And well, when you have this receiving group, the Arizona Cardinals, and the broadcast was highlighting this all night, the Cardinals were sitting on everything possible because
Mm-hmm.
that's the only way that the Chargers can generate, some run after catch opportunities with this group. So the Chargers were injured in the pass catcher department tonight. Obviously, no Quentin Johnston. Ladd McConkey was banged up. He looked good in the fourth quarter, but
Mm-hmm.
he certainly did not look like his usual self leading up to that. No Hayden Hurst, which that's kind of whatever. But there's no go-to solution in the red zone unless J.K. Dobbins is able to get there on the ground. And tonight, that was probably my second biggest gripe. This rushing attack for the Chargers offense
Mm-hmm.
was abysmal. This is a Arizona Cardinals defense that headed into today was, I think, 28th in success rate. They were overall, I think, 29th or 30th in total rushing yards per game. And J.K. Dobbins goes 14 carries for 40 yards. The Chargers offense does not have enough leeway to get 14 carries for 40 yards from J.K. Dobbins. And not all of that is his fault. A lot of that, I would say, is the offensive line. The offensive
Mm-hmm.
line was not good today across the board. Outside of, obviously, I think you can safely say Rashawn Slater held his own in the pass blocking department. That dude's insane. but to get physically dominated up front the way that the Chargers offensive line did, it's a really poor combination when you have a bad red zone scheme and you also cannot run the football. So it just was, it was a very, very poor showing up front, a very poor showing from Greg Roman. And that is why the Chargers have 15 points today instead of maybe 23, 26, something like that. And we can talk about the Jalen Reagor thing elsewhere. But to me, the Chargers lose this game because they got dominated up front on offense, and Greg Roman did not have a plan in the red zone to create potential opportunities to go score touchdowns.
Yeah, the whole plan, like if Greg Roman if they cannot run left, I have no idea what else they do in the run game. The entire rest of it, I mean, tonight it was awful. Anything else they tried to do. J.K. Dobbins, the yardage, sure, it's attributed to him. Didn't seem like it was most of his fault most of that game. Several times I'm making a guy miss in the backfield and I'm getting 2 yards. There's a play late in that game where there's just like 2 guys in his face. He gets 2 yards, but that's him forcing 3 missed tackles, it feels like, on one play. I mean, there was nothing in the red zone. Like you mentioned, it's the same calls over and over again. I mean, we had talked about it heading into this game. If it's Dobbins punching it in or it's McConkey on a crosser and everything else, I have no idea what they do. Other than, and we joke about this, but it's still kind of true, the 4 verts to whoever the heck's at the big body tight end guys. It's not working. It has not worked. The Chargers are down, I think, 15% in red zone touchdown efficiency from last year, and they were missing a lot of players. And I think they were down 14% from Lombardi's final year, where, they were missing a lot of players. Herbert had cracked ribs and all that sort of stuff. Like, it was just watching this offense try to punch it in the red zone or do anything once they cross, the 40, the 30. It's tough. And on the one hand, of course, yes, there are injuries. There's not a ton of talent out there. Part of this is personnel. But part of it, like you said, is just watching the scheme, watching them come up short every single time and frankly get out physicaled by this Cardinals team. You could tell very early on this Cardinals team was here to hit and play physical. Yeah. It just felt like they set the tone the entire game. The Chargers battled back some. That's partially because the Cardinals defense isn't that great. So part of the frustration too is just like this defense is not good. This Cardinals defense was not good. This defense was on par with the Panthers and their defense. Like statistically, they're kind of about the same. And for the Chargers to struggle to punch it in, even with the guys that they had, is really disappointing.
Yeah, super disappointing. And it felt discombobulated. And you even saw that to a point where, the Chargers have a key, I think it was a 3rd down in the plus red zone. So they were around the 30-yard line. And Brendan Rice and Jalen Reagor are all sorts of out of whack. They are not lining up properly. The Chargers have to call a timeout to save a delay of game penalty because it would have been even further back at that point. And Justin Herbert rightfully was very, very upset at his 2 receivers for not lining up in that specific moment. And then you get to the end of the game, and instead of having 3 timeouts, you have 2 timeouts. And, me and Brooke were talking during the game. The Chargers get down to the very, they have that 8-minute drive. You have a 4th and 4 situation. And I don't think Harbaugh would have gone for it. But if he had 3 timeouts, you at least can have that conversation of potentially going for that situation. Maybe you convert, maybe you can continue to just salt the clock off, and maybe you win this game. But because you have to burn that timeout, the Chargers they were not even granted the opportunity of considering going for that. So it just felt on offense like it was Justin Herbert hero ball. It was the only thing that was going well. And he played an awesome, awesome game. Some of these throws that he was making tonight were fantastic. But yes, Trevor Scott, the drops, the Jalen Reagor fumble, the penalties, the pressure packages, again, getting to Justin Herbert. This offense does not have the pieces to overcome that many mistakes. And you can handle a couple here and there. If it was just the Reagor fumble, cool. Sure. But there were so many mistakes after mistakes after mistakes. And ultimately it just results in the Chargers, scoring 15 points. So this offensive performance felt like a slog. It felt like Justin Herbert was the only one that was really kind of on top of everything. And man, the Chargers are going to watch this tape back, and they're going to be very disappointed about the way that this game went for them. This is definitely a game
Yeah.
that got away from them.
Yeah, it did. And it never should have. Very surprising, especially on the offensive side. I'm curious what they now do moving forward personnel wise, because, obviously they took Joe Alt at 5, and it was basically unquestioned like the entire way they were going to take Joe Alt at 5 over Malik Neighbors. And we talk about how this team is not going to prioritize wide receiver as much. They feel like on day 2, day 3, they can find these guys. Sure. That works for Andy Reid and LaFleur and these guys who are, I don't know, pretty good play callers. Not as much the Chargers. So, like, what do they – if Greg Roman cannot elevate this team and this offense with subpar players, are they going to have to change maybe the way they might think about acquiring players and skill position players and receivers and invest in these guys? Or are they always going to be trench first? Because they can be trench first all they want. If that's the best Greg Roman can do in the red zone with day 2 guys, middling kind of guys, they're not going to go anywhere. Like, I'm looking at this offense this year. I don't think there's a worse deep. Well, I don't know how the Bengals are at these days, but they're not going to get a whole lot worse than facing the 28th to 32nd ranked defense.
The Bengals are a little worse, but
yeah, great. A little worse. Awesome. Fantastic. We have that to look forward to at least. Yeah. And even at least they have a pass rusher. Like, the Cardinals, I don't know. I don't really know what was out there. I knew Kaiser White. I knew Max Melton. This wasn't like a great
you knew Max Melton because you're a draft nerd, and that's
correct.
If you didn't know that, then there's no reason you would have known Max Melton's name heading into today.
Or some Rutgers guy on our podcast. But
yeah,
I just it's an unacceptable performance, and I don't see them getting any better. The good news is Herbert looks solid, so that will we've done this song and dance before, so that'll carry them.
Yeah,
but I just don't see this red zone team getting any better with their current personnel. Something has to change.
Yeah, something has to change. And to me, unless you're going out and getting another wide receiver or a tight end, it's the scheme and it's the way that you're using the players. Like, I don't understand in what world you activate Jalen Reagor from the practice squad and you are throwing him the football 5 times in the first half. And a handoff. Like, this guy, play him on special teams. I'm cool with it. If you want to do an occasional jet sweep, that's fine with me. You design him touches. I understand you're a little bit banged up right now, but the way that this regime uses personnel is so frustrating to me. They finally play Stone Smart ahead of Eric Tomlinson in a 2-minute drill situation, and he converts a big passing play. And yes, he dropped the next one, but we're designing touches for Will Disley, Scott Madlock, and Eric Tomlinson instead of Stone Smart. We're designing touches for Jalen Reagor instead of Brendan Rice. I'm obviously not a huge fan. I like him more than Jalen Reagor, man. What are we doing here? The personnel decisions and designing touches for that kind of player, I don't understand the logic there. When you have such a thin margin already as an offense, you need to just funnel the plays to your good players. And it sounds so simple, but this is a pattern for the entire season, man.
Yeah.
You don't have the luxury of not throwing the football 12 times to Ladd McConkey and 7 or 8 times to Joshua Palmer. And you can't do this every single week. And then also have the penalties, the 2 turnovers, etc. It was just, it was tough. And yes, Brendan Rice, definitely, you could tell that he was not super comfortable with everything that was going on in this one. That's probably why he's not playing.
Mm-hmm.
But if Jalen Reagor can come off the street 2 weeks ago and learn the offense, Brendan Rice can do the same thing. So it's just that part is frustrating to me.
Yeah, I understand. So Darius Davis is out, and Darius Davis is a big part of the motion, and he got 3 touches, I believe, the previous week. They want to move him around, make him a part of their offense. So I understand why you take a player who could be fast and do those sort of things and maybe move him around the line of scrimmage, change things up, give the defense some looks. But you don't actually have to just feed him because he's the guy you hope Darius Davis could be, but Darius Davis is hurt. So let's just feed the guy that's replacing him. I don't think you have to do that. Brendan Rice, it's very unfortunate. I don't know how many snaps he ended up playing, We saw the one. I didn't even really get a beat on what was happening in that particular play. Like, was it his fault officially, or is it Rager? It was both.
3 snaps for Brendan Rice, by the way.
Okay, so 3 snaps for Brendan Rice. Yeah, I think if there's I don't know. They've been willing to play Sam Mustipher over guys that we thought maybe they should be playing over Sam Mustipher. So maybe it's just sometimes you make some poor personnel decisions. Do you want to talk about Mustipher being backup center number 2 right now?
At some point we can. So Rieger gets 15 snaps and Brendan Rice got 3. Stone Smart was 7 snaps and Eric Tomlinson with 22. Granted, Tomlinson's a blocker and all that stuff, but
sure.
Eric Tomlinson ran 8 routes and Stone Smart ran 5. I'm sorry. You can't do stuff like that when your offense is already limited. It just,
yeah.
Everything is so difficult with everything in the red zone. Like, you gotta get some space where you can, and it's just, it was frustrating, man. I mean, Justin, if we told everybody in this chat, and we have 630 of you right now, we appreciate you. I see the super chats.
Yeah,
We'll get
seriously.
to them. If we told everybody in this chat, hey, tomorrow Justin Herbert is going to throw for 348 yards, we'd be like, okay, cool. The Chargers put like 40 on the Cardinals, and he couldn't score a single touchdown, man. It was, oh man, it was such a frustrating day for the offense.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of even what happened in every drive. Well, there's the fumble. That's great. Well,
Yes.
First there was a fumble, and then there was the fumble from Rager. Yeah, they got to the 3, everything you'd want. And I mean, hey, the Rager play started off great, so they were right for about half a second. I still think he was out of bounds, by the way, but fine. You called that. What happened there? Incomplete. And then they 3rd and 1 get 1 yard, 3rd and 10 2 yards. Just I don't know. Rushing attacks, I don't know, hit or miss.
They had 2 different drives go for more than 10 plays that ended in field goals.
Yeah, the last drive for sure. And then
the last drive went 15 plays, 8 minutes, which, like, awesome job salting the clock away. Like, you did that part great.
Yeah,
but then the red zone offense is just awful. And then their first scoring drive that Dicker hit a 59-yard field goal on went 13 plays in 7 minutes, and they ended up with the field goal. So this I hate to be like sky is falling, and I'm certainly not to that point right now. But if you're going to live like this, you can't make these kind of mistakes that they are making, and you can't design these kind of touches for the players that they are designing touches for. You just don't have the luxury right now. And a lot of that, Dicker, Ladd was not healthy. No Quentin, no Darius Davis. I get it, but like, your margin for error is so slim, and you just can't play like this. But man, Justin Herbert played awesome, which sucks because he made some incredible throws today. And it's just like, okay, like the throw he had to Joshua Palmer was insane. There were others off the top of my head that I'm blanking on, but he was so good today, mitigating pressure, throwing great passes. And 15 points to show for it.
It might be the strongest I've seen him this year, even with the high ankle sprain. He's had guys like draped on him, and I feel like he's been able to shrug off more of contact than usual. Like he's played awesome. Played awesome last week. Played great this week. I don't think I saw a turnover worthy play. I thought he played very well, but there were, especially in like the very end of the game, because of course, and that's where the Chargers have been falling apart. 4 or 5 drops, it felt like, from different players. And you feel bad because some of these guys have been consistently the good players. But Disley had drops. McConkey had at least 1. You could count 2 fine. Just several drops. Stone Smart had that drop. Doesn't get much better than what Herbert was able to do out there. So great performance from him. I don't really have any issues with how he played. Everything else was just a big letdown. The offensive line let down. Right now the pressure numbers are fine. Like, they allowed 14 pressures, 2 sacks, but probably could have been worse if Herbert wasn't such a good scrambler. Bozeman again, not great. So just not great. I don't remember when Joe Alt allowed a sack though.
Yeah, me neither. These grades and stuff like that from PFF will change, but right now they have him charted as a 91.9 offensive grade, 5 big time throws and 0 turnover worthy plays. So And honestly, that checks out. That's how it felt.
Yes. Yeah. That grade definitely matches what we saw. Like, just perfectly dialed in. I really thought he felt confident. I almost felt like, in a weird way, I saw like a taller Justin Herbert. Like, I felt like I could see him survey the field. And the blocking was like okay to start the game. I thought they were really solid. And then it just fell apart. The drops.
Yeah.
We're so close to an awesome final drive. Like, they were, like you said, 15 plays, 8 minutes from the 3. I mean, that was a drive. That was going to be an awesome ending. Oh, it was from the 1. Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, and they almost pulled it off. Yeah. It just didn't happen.
When that ball got punted to the 1, I was like, this game's over. Like, there's no way. No way they're going to be able to get out of this situation. And then Justin Herbert bails him out. So it just is unfortunate.
Yeah.
DJ Chark did not play today. He did practice this week. I think he should be returning next week against the New Orleans Saints, who are very banged up themselves. And if you filter after the first 2 weeks, their defense is also very bad. So how much, if at all, does DJ Chark potentially returning next week change the vibe that we are having and discussing right now?
I think it's just a little bit of everything. Yes, DJ Chark is returning. I do feel better about him being out there. In theory, like, this is the guy Greg Roman wanted. This is what they want out there. This is the guy that fits what they want, for better or worse. He's also a guy that we've at least seen in training camp be a red zone target for them and be the contested catch guy, be a taller receiver. So that might, solve some of those problems. So I feel better there, but it's also McConkey should be healthier. And heck, somehow in the fourth quarter, he rejuvenated himself. So McConkey being healthier would be great. Maybe Johnston plays. Palmer's 1 week further away from the 32 injuries that he's had this year. I think everything else will coalesce into a better offense. But yes, DJ Chark being out there, even if it's one touchdown or one big play in the fourth quarter, that would help the Chargers a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if you can replace that Jalen Reagor target with a DJ Chark target, maybe this is a different game. I'm anxious to see what it looks like, because it does just feel like this team is missing that. Like, Dan Orlovsky kept on calling, double move. Well, who's running a double move, Dan?
Like, Simi Fajoko's not doing it. Like, he had a good night, but he is who he is. What they were calling for was hilarious.
I like the players that they have. They're just in a lot of roles that they should not be in. I like Simi Fehoko as wide receiver 5. I don't like him a whole lot as wide receiver 3. I like Joshua Palmer as wide receiver 3. I don't love him as wide receiver 2 or 1 tonight, kind of, basically. So getting DJ Chark back, I think, will help. Getting Quentin Johnston back, I don't know if he can play or not next week. He didn't practice at all this week. That would obviously be huge. But it just feels like the offense is missing a couple of pieces, and we figured that would be the case heading into the season.
Right.
But it feels like a mid-season trade for a pass-catching tight end or another receiver to kind of take the top off would be very, very helpful for this team if they are going to make a serious push for the playoffs, because they're going to play some good defenses down the stretch who are going to be able to do things to keep them off of schedule, like the Cardinals did tonight. And the Chargers are not going to be on schedule every single game. It's just not possible in the NFL. So they I think feel like a team that would love a mid-season trade, and we'll see ultimately if Georgie's is able to do that.
Yeah, we'll see. I get why they do it. History suggests they maybe won't, because of how Harbaugh and Roman might want to play. We'll talk about the defense at some point, but it does feel like they should go get defensive guys. So, but that's the thing. Like, they're not a piece away, clearly. So,
yeah,
what can you do?
All right, let's get to some super chats, and then we will touch on the defense and as well as some Jim Harbaugh stuff. Mr. Sarl kicking us off. He says, "I hate this football team." Hate's a strong word, but today was definitely disappointing to see that performance against a very beatable Cardinals team in a game that they should have won for sure.
Yeah, I don't hate this team, but my kids are gonna hate how fast it kills me. So
hopefully by that point, the Chargers are not doing stupid shit like this. And hopefully Patrick Mahomes is retired at that point also.
Okay, we'll see.
Austin Smith, premature, maybe, but Luther Burden III is on his wish list.
Sure.
The receiver from Missouri.
Hmm.
I don't have any real takes on Luther Burden. I know he plays a lot of snaps in the slot, and I know he's kind of a yards after catch guy. It's not a perfect fit with Ladd, but I get the receiver in the first round conversation for sure.
Yes.
Good game, but unnecessary roughness.
Okay.
I don't know if this is a Cardinals fan. If it is, respect. But that legitimately made me so mad because I thought Cam Hart played a whale of a game today, and then B played that ball perfectly. He lowered his shoulder. He knocked the ball out. That's a football play, man. Like, what is he supposed to do differently there?
The final angle, I could see it. Like from our view, looking towards the outside of the sideline, I'm like, okay, like no shot, no way. Final angle, okay. But it really just that's a slow motion, watch it 10 times, sort of thing. To call that real time was insane to me. It was a guy, like he's just trying to force Marvin Harris Jr. out of bounds. Break up the pass, obviously, but also just force him out of bounds. And it didn't feel malicious, didn't feel like targeting, and it did not feel like unnecessary roughness. So, I'm not going to sit here and blame the refs. We don't usually do that ever. But that was a huge call that was then followed up by an awful defensive effort, and Cardinals won. And I think they don't win because of that play, but it resulted in what ended up being their game-winning drive.
Yeah, and I feel like if you're going to make that call, it's got to be like a very clear, like lowering of the head, very clear contact to the head. And that just, it was not that way to me. Like you could tell that Cam Hart was trying to hit him with his shoulder. I don't see how you can make that call in that moment. So it was just really frustrating. There were a few very questionable calls on both sides of this game. This is not just like a Chargers issue, but the refereeing today I thought was pretty bad.
Yeah, not great.
Joe Cruz,
guys. Wow, thank you.
Yes, appreciate it. Joe Cruz super sticker. Thank you so much for that. If you have a question, feel free and send it in, and we'll make sure to answer it. Another one from Steven Joe. Is that a Jajo? That personal foul was so BS. What the hell? Yes, we agree with that for sure. Tara, appreciate you both as always. Tara's always in here post game, sending super chats, so we greatly appreciate that. Chargers haven't scored a touchdown on their last 15 drives. How much of this is injuries, coaching scheme, players getting outplayed? These problems have to get fixed. That's an awful statistic to share here, but
yeah. Thanks for sharing that one. I'm just gonna look at red zone scoring percentage this year. Like, does Cleveland's number 2? How?
Because they're very rarely down there.
That's amazing. But come on, like looking at some of these teams, it could be talent, but Cleveland, New Orleans is 5th, and then you see usual guys like Minnesota, Buffalo. I get it, sure. Cincinnati, Vegas is 11th. I don't even know if they know what quarterback they want. Las Vegas is 11th at 58%. Chargers are way down there at. Oh, did it just update? It must have. It did just update. So the Chargers are now 30th in red zone touchdown percentage with a 38%.
It feels that way.
Yeah, so now they're 30th. After they were 28th, they dropped to 30th.
Surprised it's not lower, to be honest.
Yeah, they're behind the Giants at 42%. Like, you're behind Daniel Jones and the Giants.
And that makes sense. They don't have anybody except for Malik Neighbors to throw the football to.
And who's been gone for 3 games. So, and he hasn't been out there. And they have, So it to me, yes, personnel would obviously help. A tight end there would be awesome. Mike Williams there would be awesome. But it feels Greg Roman to me. It's like, the play sheet's 3 plays in the red zone right now.
Yeah.
And teams have figured out how to stop 2 of them.
It's mesh. It's somebody on a wheel route, and if it's Kamani,
nobody
it works.
Good.
Yeah. Or it's run left, and sometimes that also works. But man, it just was tough day for the offense.
Yep.
Movie fans. So Rager over Rice, SMA Trigger is not good. Yeah, we talked about this. Rager getting involved that early was shocking to me. Designing him touches, you can't defend that at all.
No, I get the chunk play shot. I'm like, okay, sure, that makes sense. Like if the NFL's
he
open,
is their fastest receiver.
Yes, there was no Davis. and he was open. Like the call was great. It worked. It just, you didn't hold on to it. 3 plays to start the game, 3 negative plays, each of them. Like, wasn't pretty.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the like content creators were like, "Oh, like this is how I discovered that Jalen Reagor was back in the league," and it's like,
you're welcome.
yeah, I don't know. Montserrat Gonzalez in here with a super sticker and then another super chat. Give any receiver the money they're asking for to help Herbert. Big letdown with wide receivers except for Palmer. Herbert is too good, man. Sigh.
Yeah, this is, I mean, you and I obviously like Joe Alt quite a bit, but there were players we liked more, including, again, like Malik Neighbors. These guys they need somebody else, a new kind of guy out there. And if this was the plan, I wish they would have just, and we had hoped for this too, like, wish they had just kept Keenan and cut Joey, if this is kind of how they wanted to go with the receiving core. But oh well.
Yeah, more on Joey later, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Black Blazers in here with a super sticker. We appreciate that. Tara back with another one. She says, "Screw it, draft Tez Johnson from Oregon for wide receiver and let him just run crazy routes. Speedy elite route runner."
No idea who he is. Oregon receivers or something.
Yes, he's very good. He's very shifty. Kind of gives you like Zay Flowers vibes. So does kind of fit with the archetype that the Ravens have kind of drafted over the years.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, we'll see. The receiver in the first round train, I'm sure, is going to continue to increase at a tremendous rate.
Oh, yeah.
After games like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Black Blazers again. That was a prime Staley performance. I don't know if I would go that far. There were some things in here that I think are just a product of the way that Jim Harbaugh wants to coach and play football. But if this were a prime Staley performance, the Cardinals would have put up like 44 points.
Yeah, correct. With this secondary, not that like Cam Hart like sucks or anything, but like with rookies coming in, Tarheeb still playing on the outside and all that. Yeah, it would have been 40 to 50 points. It would have been brutal. We would have said, "Oh, well, they're just missing players." Jesse Minter, like, yes, of course the defense could have been better, but they did a very solid job overall.
Yeah,
except for the missed tackles.
Yeah, if this were 3 years ago and Jasir Taylor and Dean Leonard rookie season of those players had to like start a game against Marvin Harrison Jr. equivalent, that player goes for like 125 yards and 3 touchdowns probably.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't stop Rex Burkhead. They're not stopping Marvin Harrison Jr. equivalent.
Yeah, but I get it. It's frustrating for sure.
It is.
Billy Bohard says, "I'm gonna need a happy movie and a nap after that." Hey man, you do you. If you got to de-stress that way, you go right ahead.
Yeah. I don't know what movies are out. I think they're all just sad. There's that Andrew Garfield movie that's sad. I think Wild Robot is a kid's movie that ends up being sad. Apparently Joker sucks. So yeah, but at least take a nap. Start with that. All
right, let's get to some defense stuff, and then we'll come back to the super chats. Okay. I don't want to spend the whole time doing super chats, but we do greatly appreciate it, and we'll get to them. But I do want to have this conversation. So, all right. So defense, 17 points, which you look at that, and obviously that's pretty good. The biggest issue I think we can talk about here is the missed tackling from this Chargers defense really ended up biting them in the ass. So James Conner. Again, early tracking can certainly change. James Conner forced 14 missed tackles on his own in this game.
Oh my God.
3 as a pass catcher and 11 as a runner. He goes for 101 yards, 5.3 yards per attempt, averaged 4.84 yards after contact per attempt. That was the game on defense. I thought the pass defense actually played pretty well. Mm-hmm. They could not tackle James Conner today, and it was by far the worst run defense game that we've seen from this Jesse Minter-led unit. Heading into today, they were first in success rate. They were first in yards per game allowed. They were first in yards per carry allowed. To get dominated by James Conner that way, it's a very similar vibe for me as the offensive line. I expect significantly better from this Chargers front 7 than they put out today against James Conner. That is really the only reason why the Chargers defense struggled today. They could not tackle James Conner, like plain and simple for me.
No, I mean, and a lot of the times, a lot of these guys, the defensive linemen, the edge rushers, like they would win and maybe even get really close to tackling James Conner. And then James Conner, like you said, forced 14 missed tackles. Was it 14?
14, yep.
Which is an insane number for one individual, but they just could not stop him. And he was physical. I mean, give him all the credit. Like sometimes players have great games. James Conner played an awesome game. It wasn't just Chargers suck. Conner played a great game. Unfortunately, it's partially because the Chargers were awful at tackling. The Chargers have had issues with tackling. They haven't been bad. I think at one point mid-season or mid this current season, I thought the first few games, we knew like they allowed like 14 total misses against the Chiefs, I want to say, maybe even the Steelers. I forget what it was. But it was never this bad. This was a bad one for sure. As you mentioned, the pass coverage I thought was excellent. Even Kyler Murray. Yes, Kyler Murray got his, obviously. He was sensational, unfortunately, as a scrambler tonight, as an extender of the play. But there were so many times, and the broadcast even pointed it out. Coverage is great, like coverage, and then Murray scramble.
Yeah.
So coverage was great. Credit to Jesse Minter in that unit again. But yeah, the run defense, the tackling was rough.
Yeah, it was. I think this Chargers defense has shown their recipe for success, just like the offense has. You stop the run, you play coverage, and they've been able to be a great top 5 defense in the league up until this point because they have followed that recipe. Today, you miss these tackles. The Cardinals were just always on schedule, and it becomes very, very difficult to play defense that way. So I expect the Chargers to play much better against the run going forward. Mike Elston has done generally a very, very good job of keeping these guys physical at the point of attack. And there were several times where the Chargers were in the right position. And again, it was the good run defenders, Thule, Denzel Perryman, Derwin, these guys in the right position against James Conner. And he just out physicaled them. It was literally the only reason why they were in this game. So this run defense, I expect them to be significantly better going forward. I think Jesse Minter and company are, again, going to watch this tape and be really upset at the way things looked because they left a lot of meat on the bone for this defensive performance to end up with 100-yard performance from James Conner, who he's a good running back, but he's not give up 100 yards kind of running back in this kind of game. So this Chargers defense, I expect a lot more from, and I think they'll bounce back much better next week and going forward.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm glad Otito came back in the game and he seemed to be okay. I was very worried because they're thin there. I expect them to be just fine. I thought like Cam Hart was playing nice and physical. I thought early Colson was very active. The defensive line. Thule played great. Khalil Mack is still Khalil Mack. So they have the pieces there. I think they'll be fine. Today was just an uncharacteristically bad game for them against a surprise in James Conner. Lorenzo Neal talked. I saw like the clip out, like Lorenzo Neal talking about how this might be the toughest rushing offense they've faced so far. And statistically, that wasn't the case. But tonight, it definitely felt like that.
Yeah, I mean, statistically speaking, that would be the Chiefs' offense. The Chiefs' rushing offense has been, I think, the second most successful on a success rate per basis. Like they are one of the most efficient rushing attacks in the league. But I mean, credit to James Conner, man. Those are unreal numbers. I cannot remember the last time I saw a running back force that many missed tackles, that many yards after contact. I think you live and you learn, unfortunately, sometimes, and sometimes you get caught. Yeah. A thing that the Chargers, I think, are continuing going to struggle with, unfortunately, is the pass rush. And this is where potentially Joey Bosa can come up. He missed today's game. This is his third missed game with the hip injury. He's obviously dealt with the hand injury so far this season. As it currently stands, the Chargers pass rush is credited with 10 total pressures against Kyler Murray. The only defensive lineman to currently register more than one pressure is Khalil Mack with 4 pressures, who again was outstanding. He's just been like one of the best players on the field every single week. But right now, Morgan Fox registered with 1 pressure, Tuli Tuipulotu with 0, Tier Tart with 0, Otito Ogbonia 0, Scott Matlock 0, and Bud Dupree 0. So this Chargers pass rush is in a rough spot right now without Joey Bosa. So I understand the frustration. I get it. He's not been on the field and it sucks. This team desperately needs him. They do not have another pass rusher opposite of Khalil Mack right now. And it is really showing up in key moments. And again, they did a very good job limiting this Cardinals defense to 17 points. But you get your non-Khalil Mack pass rushers to combine for 1 pressure in a game like this.
Yeah.
It's brutal.
Yeah, that's terrible. I didn't realize it was that bad and that the non-defensive lineman had more pressures than the defensive lineman. I guess, outside of Khalil Mack, of course. Like Puna Ford with 1 pressure being your leading interior guy. Tuli, and I actually thought Tuli might have had 1, but regardless, they're currently charted at Tuli and Dupree with 0 combined. That's awful. That's awful. So is Joey Bosa coming back at some point? Sure, eventually. I don't know. How many games will he play? No idea. But they need him out there because 10 pressures and 4 of them being from Mac and 2 being from your defense, the rest of your defensive line is terrible. So, yeah, would love to get him back at any point would be great. Just get back healthy and stay healthy. It won't happen. But, yeah, bad. And then sure, the Chargers need a pass catcher. They need a tight end. They need a receiver. That'd be great. They also need a pass rusher. Like maybe that's just Joey Bosa returning, but this interior is not getting it done. Thank goodness for the 4th down play, I guess. But as a pass rushing unit, not great. So they're a team that we thought they would be. A team that's like, they're good. They know they have the coach. They have the quarterback. They have some talent. They're not a complete team. So it's frustrating. I got to remind myself that they're in this rebuilding-ish year that we thought they would be. But yeah, it's frustrating when you can see that they're that close and they're just not getting it done.
Yeah, man, I think expectations changed for me, especially after watching last week where the offense was able to stay on schedule. I was like, okay, if they can play like this, not every week, but most every week with this schedule, they should definitely make a playoff push. And they still certainly could. But we're talking about all of these personnel issues. And some of it is some players not living up to what we thought of. Like, I think Tuli is doing a fantastic job on tape defending the run. I think he's playing his assignment well for the most part. But at this point last season, he had like 20 pressures. And right now, I think he has 7 or 8. It's rough. So he's not playing well as a pass rusher. Bud Dupree is worse than Kyler Fackrell right now as a pass rusher. Very cool interception against the Steelers, and he defends the run very well also. Morgan Fox has not played super well. So that group in particular as pass rushers is leaving a lot to be desired right now. As run defenders, they're all executing their jobs very, very well. The pass rush performance is not really matching up with anybody outside of Khalil Mack right now. And it's an issue. And then you combine the fact that Jesse Minter is playing conservatively on the back end to protect his young corners, which I totally understand. I'm not against. So we kind of expected this defense to be one of the better pressure defenses in the league, even like potentially without Joey Bosa. And right now it's just not coming to fruition that way. So hopefully this issue gets corrected. Joey comes back and you can kind of start doing some things, more flexible up front. But it's just this pass rush is not in a great state right now.
No, it's definitely not. And they are, knock on wood, pray, prayer circle, whatever. They're one bad injury to any of these guys away from being even worse. So hopefully good health. It's a thin group. I would love to see a move here.
Okay, we've talked a lot of negative stuff, and I think we might have more depending on some super chats here. Tyler, anybody you want to give a positive shout out for tonight? We talked briefly about Cameron Dicker. I thought he was awesome, obviously just automatic, but anybody else on defense, offense, coaching, or anything like that you want to highlight?
Sure. I think we have to highlight Will Dissly. You mentioned him already, but It's funny that his personal career best was 7 catches against the Cardinals. He went ahead and topped that with 8 catches against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
I think he has had 1 game over 100 yards. So he didn't beat that, but he was very close, of course. And fittingly, I guess, he had 81 receiving yards tonight. But outside of the drop, I thought he was awesome. I thought he did obviously a lot more with his touches than expected. I don't know where he's going to be at in terms of yak or yards per route run, but he continues to randomly be awesome after the catch. So overall, Will Dissly was very, very strong tonight. Wasn't perfect. He didn't allow the sack, but he allowed a pressure that forced Herbert to step up into Bozeman's guy, and he sacked him. Was that the
Yeah, I know
play?
what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously that wasn't great, but still to be the blocking tight end and to step up and give the team 81 yards is awesome.
Yeah, 81 yards is kind of crazy. Louis Riddick was talking about the Cardinals having to double team him at some point during the game. So he's a blocking tight end. They throw him a couple screen passes a game. It's fantastic, to see the way that he's contributed to this team for the most part. But using him as a pass catcher as this much, I certainly did not see coming. And you can tell that Justin was looking for him in key moments too. So he's at right now 6.3 yards after catch per reception, 50 total yards after catch generated, 2.45 yards per route run, most on the team outside of Stone Smart and Jalen Rieger because of their one specific catch each there. So great shout out for Will Dissly. I mentioned Rashawn earlier. I'm sure the film for Rashawn is going to be fantastic. These two young corners, man, Cam Hart and Tariq Still, they, again, not perfect. I'm sure each of them, will tell you that they left a couple plays on the field, but both of them had a forced incompletion. I thought Cam Hart should have had the second one, with the unnecessary roughness penalty. And then he also forced a fumble. It was a great peanut punch on that run from James Conner. Unfortunately, the Chargers did not recover it, but I don't know if Cam Hart's given that job back on the outside, man. And Tariq Still started over Jasir Taylor, who was healthy heading into this game and also played pretty well today for what it's worth. So these two young corners, I feel pretty good with where Cam Hart is at in his development. He didn't have the one missed tackle against Trey McBride, but he made a couple of good plays on the football. He made a couple of good run stops. He forced a fumble. I'm very, very pleased with where Cam Hart is at right now. And then Tariq Still also had a pretty good game as well.
Yeah, Tariq Still, only 4 yards allowed is pretty good. I wasn't sure. Like, obviously, Dortch and Michael Wilson, these guys aren't like superstars, but they're good enough. And frankly, at this point, I would think that they could do more against a rookie day 3 pick like Tariq Still. But he was solid. He allowed 1 catch, 4 yards, had a pass breakup. And we'll see what the film shows. But overall, statistically, looked great on the field, looked great. Some of the tackling could be better, sure, but fine. But Cam Hart, I think you just let him rock and see the ups and downs.
Yeah.
See if he can hang, because right now the first 2 games he's been awesome. He allowed 40 yards today, but I think most of that was actually against McBride, which is cool to see him matched up against a tight end there. I don't recall it being much of an outside issue. There was the early first down conversion to Marvin Harrison Jr. After that, felt like he clearly held his own. Like, regardless, 40 yards allowed in this game, regardless of who he's matched up against, was awesome. But it's the tackling, it's the physicality, it's the forced fumble, the effort, the 7 tackles, Marvin Harrison Jr. is about to catch the ball, get him out of bounds, knock him out of bounds. Even the unnecessary roughness, which, again, we don't feel so strongly, we don't agree. He was knocking him out of bounds again, like, just smart in the scheme, the right size, the right prototype, the right amount of physicality. He just kind of looks perfect in this defense. And you and I, we talked about him as in our list of the Harbaugh guys. And that's really coming true right now. He just looks like, maybe not even necessarily a Harbaugh guy, looks like a Minter guy. It just fits. And I'm really excited to see him and Fulton out there on the outside.
Yeah, so I didn't realize this, but they're crediting him with one of the James Conner screens. So that might potentially change. So 1 catch, 18 yards on that screen, 2 catches allowed to Trey McBride, 15 yards there. 1 catch, 7 yards allowed to Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr. So hat tip to the guy who locked him down in the college, and you did it again today in the NFL. So
yeah,
it's great to see the Chargers. A lot of the season needs to be about like finding potentially like long-term building blocks. And if Cam Hart can continue to do this, man, like it's just huge for this team if they can knock that cornerback position off the needs board. You bring back Christian Fulton, who played today very sparingly. I think he played on a few key like third downs throughout, but nothing major. And you can potentially get your guys going there. So would love to see Cam Hart continue to play this way. And Tariq still as well, man. If he can keep playing this way, slot, outside, I think it's just it's great for them to be in this position.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the Chargers could roll into next season with 2 of their starters as being day 3 picks, basically back-to-back picks in the draft. The fact that they've maybe found 2 is impressive.
Yeah. To your point, Cam Hart right now has the 3rd highest run defense grade on the team. So that's good to see. We talked about Khalil Mack, 4 pressures, 1 hit, 3 run stops. That dude
2 batted passes.
2 batted passes, one of them leading to an interception. Khalil Mack has just been awesome for this team so far. The sack numbers are down, obviously, but it's been great to see.
Yeah. No, I'll take it. He forced 2 turnover. He ended 2 drives on 1 drive. Like, just awesome player.
Yeah. All right, we got a lot of super chats to touch on, so we appreciate that. Did you have anything else you wanted to touch on specifically before we jump into those?
Not in particular. Let's go through these and see what's in here.
Okay, sounds good. From Devin here, he says offense sucks. G-Row equals poverty. Jalen Reagor is a terrorist. 3 reps for B Rice. Got to trade for Mike Wheeler, Hunter Henry at this point, right? Lot to dive in there, Tyler. Any thoughts there?
I'll ignore one of those comments. Yes, they do need to acquire someone, but again, I'd be just as happy with them acquiring someone on defense too, to rush the passer. So, or just get Joey back. But yes, I'm for Mike Williams. I wrote an article. We've all talked about it. They're bad in the red zone. They're bad in the 4th quarter. And if you think of every Mike Williams in Arrowhead play or the catch against the Titans, there's so many times where Mike Williams can be that guy, make that splash play. This team needs that.
Yeah, we saw a couple of situations where Josh Palmer's toe tap grab on the sideline was
insane grab,
so good. But then there's a couple other, like drops here and there. And it's just, does Mike Williams come down with all of those? Probably not at this stage of his career, but gives them maybe 1 or 2 more. And then just the red zone threat, I think, would help. Tremendously. How many plays did we run where it was 3 tight ends running deep routes? I don't know, but probably too many.
Felt like less. I wonder if that's going to go down because of Hurst being out.
That's true.
It felt like less.
I will say Scott Matlock did log his fewest overall snaps on offense today to this point. He had 11 snaps on offense today.
And then on defense, 9. So not very involved. Back to McFadden it is.
Well, he was a healthy scratch today, which I have so many questions about, but that's the topic for another day, probably.
Yeah.
Black Lasers, he says, I can't keep living like this until Roman is gone. Yeah, not a super popular guy today, Mr. Greg Roman.
No.
Yeah. Mel Gomez, I don't know if there was a question attached here, but thank you for the super sticker. If you have another one, I'll try and keep an eye out for it. But we'll potentially circle back there. J29, when are we going to get a real outside receiver SMH? Maybe DJ Chark is that guy. Says the guy who didn't even want him signed.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Hey, DJ Chark, our savior.
Yeah. Hey, they could go get a different Carolina receiver and go get Deontay Johnson. That would help a lot too, I think.
How about Adam Thielen? Can I interest you in Adam Thielen?
Honestly, I would probably take it.
Jonathan Mingo.
We liked him coming out of the draft, but
yes.
It's not gone well in Carolina. But it has not gone well in Carolina for a lot of players.
Yeah.
Billy Silverman, is Mike Williams talk for real? Because now seems like a good time to make that call. So the latest reporting does seem to indicate that the Steelers are kind of the leader in the clubhouse there. We talked a bit about this on Saturday based off of Ian Rappaport's reporting, but they were interested in him leading up to free agency. They've been interested in every single potential wide receiver trade out there, which they traded Deontay Johnson away for a cornerback who doesn't even start for them right now. So that's funny. So they kind of seem to be like the leader in the clubhouse. Mike Williams, stylistically with Russ Wilson, I'm not crazy about that potential fit if I'm the Steelers, but they obviously have George Pickens already. He kind of does a lot of the Mike Williams stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That seems to be the indication. The Jets are probably going to try and trade him sooner rather than later. I think he only played like 12 snaps on Sunday night, so it was not pretty for Mike Williams. So the Chargers are interested. They have called, according to all of the major reporters. Diana Rossini was on it very early in the week, as we kind of talked about on Thursday. So there's a chance. They wanted him back at the right number. The right number was not possible. Maybe now that right number involves sending a 6th-round draft pick and you pay him a couple $1 million this season, but it is definitely possible. And we've kind of talked about this a few times. We would both make that call for sure.
Yeah, this would be, if he'd never played for the Chargers, although it does help that he did, this would be the heralded, wow, Joe Ortiz, what a high reward, low risk kind of move, late day 3 pick, doesn't cost anything, but wow, it could really help our offense. Like if he wasn't a Charger before, we'd see less pushback, I think. I get the whole, like, yes, he's got injury history. No, he's not an elite receiver. Is he the same guy? I don't know. But I believe in the 1 to 2 plays. Like, honestly, would you trade a 6th or 7th round pick and pay $2 million this year? Well, if you have the cap to do so, for a guy who could maybe make 1 to 2 plays for your team that would change the outcomes of the last 2 losses for you, I would. To me, it just doesn't seem like there's nothing really to give up here. You have to give up something, but it's not much.
Yeah. So Justin Herbert officially averaged 8.9 yards per attempt today. That's crazy, man. That is a really, really high number. So hoping for better going forward. Mackenzie Logan, love y'all as always. Appreciate Mackenzie for jumping in here. Greg Newsom, come on down. Seriously, though, with all the injuries in the secondary, realistic things we can do to help this defense. The Cleveland Browns are definitely in seller's mode. Their horrible human being of a quarterback tore his Achilles yesterday. So they are potentially selling everybody. They have a few defensive pieces I would be very interested in, including Greg Newsom, who could be a long-term potential cornerback 1 on this team, play the slot, play outside, fits perfectly with what Jesse Minter likes stylistically. I would be very, very much in favor of this potential addition.
Yeah, I would be too. Cleveland, so they play them in 2 weeks?
Correct. Saints and then Browns after that.
Okay, so got to get past that game. I'm sure they won't trade him before the game, but yeah, I would love any just gesture at Cleveland defense. I'll take any of those guys. And frankly, most of Cleveland's roster is really good. It's just the one big issue.
Yeah, their offensive line has been quite injured as well, but they have several defensive pieces. Maybe we can make the Elijah Moore thing happen this time. I don't know.
One day.
People are asking about David Njoku in the chat, in my messages. I can't imagine they would trade him. He's probably their best offensive player right now. So I think they probably hold on to David Njoku.
Yeah, I think so.
Teresa Compapa is in here. Rager infatuation, awful run blocking, and Connor looking like Walter Payton. Going to your 5th best option on the most important play equals bad coaching.
Is that the Fehoko play?
Oh, the one that should have been pass interference.
Bear hug one,
the bear hug one. Yeah, I'm okay with that play design. It just kind of seemed like him and Herbert were not on the same page, and then he got bear hugged by a cornerback. So
yeah, which Harbaugh was absolutely livid about.
Yeah,
it was fun. I'm glad the camera gave us that.
Yeah, it was fun, I guess. I'm fine with that decision by Justin Herbert. It seemed like it was a situation where Herbert got like a one-on-one look and he tried to like audible to that, and Fehoko maybe just didn't get the memo, but we'll see what that looks like on tape. Mel Gomez back in here. I don't know if this was the original comment here, but Justin Herbert is 20-2 with defense lining up 20 points or less, and those 2 losses are from this season. Tight end train confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, the defense has clearly been doing its part, even though it didn't look great tonight. It definitely did its part for the most part. I'm happy with the tight end trade for sure.
Yeah, we mentioned a few names: Mike Gesicki, Daniel Bellinger. I actually did look this up on Spot Rack because you can sort transactions there, which is a feature on Over the Cap that I would love for them to have. Otherwise, I don't have any reason to use Spot Rack. But there have only been 2 mid-season tight end trades in the last 5 years, while there's been like 15 wide receiver trades and even more offensive line trades than tight end trades. So I'm curious why that would be the case, why teams kind of hold on to their tight ends and, not offload pieces if you're not using them and stuff like that. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because teams feel like they can find like tight end classes. It's great one class, and then this class, it's like, well, it's Bowers, and it's kind of it. I don't know if there's just more like you feel like every year is a good receiver class, so maybe that's why you feel like you can offload them. But so it was Hawkinson.
It was Hawkinson and Dan Arnold.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah. He went from, I think, the Cardinals to the Jaguars, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably did not fetch a second round pick.
No. No. And
I was like,
did not
the big tight end? Sorry. Sorry. Apologies, Dan Arnold.
Yeah. I think the Jaguars cut him like a month later. That was the Urban Meyer season. So, that's
gotcha. Okay.
That's where they were at.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Lopez in here. Hey guys, I live in Madera, California, not too far away from me. I actually played golf in Madera last weekend, so shout out Madera. Big supporter. Keep up the good work. Curious why they did not use B Rice more often. So bummed on the L tonight.
Yeah, I think we'll all read a lot into the one miscommunication or the inability to get set or whatever it was on that play. Overall, I just think they have set kind of defined roles for guys. And I think Simi Fehoko is just a huge barrier to him getting on the field. And tonight, I think Simi and last week, Simi deserves to be out there based on how he's been performing. And I think they just really can't find a way to get him out there.
Yeah, obviously he's not going to play in the slot over Ladd.
Right.
He's not going to play the backside Z over Palmer right now. And so his best chance to play is at the X spot, and that's where Simi has been. And Simi's played well, to his credit. It's just unfortunate. There were multiple times, though. I think 2 of the 3 reps, the only 2 receivers on the field were Rice and Rieger, which I thought was very confusing. And then that obviously led to the miscommunication that forced the Chargers to call timeout. So I think it's just, as the people in front of him are executing their roles at a higher level. And I know everybody, I definitely want him on the field over Jalen Reagor, 100%. But I think there's just some things he's got to adjust to that maybe is not being adjusted to right now.
Yeah, which is a bummer.
Yeah. Hopefully back half of the season, we can start seeing him come on a little bit more and get some more opportunities. Sholoman scored 9 points in the second half. Let's go, Ticker.
Yep. Continue to struggle. I think they were 22nd EPA in success rate in the second half. That falls to just not great in the second half.
The bad case, I would have gone for it on 4th down with 2 minutes left. Cardinals used all 3 timeouts and also 1 first down. The game is over. Bad decision making, in my opinion. We touched on it briefly. I don't hate kicking the field goal at the end. There was a 4th and let me make sure I get this one right. But there was that the which drive am I thinking of? Oh, yes, the second to last drive when they kicked their field goal to go from 9 to 12. They had a 4th and 3 at the Arizona 29. I 100% would have gone for that one. That one I think was a poor decision from Jim Harbaugh, who has been pretty conservative this year on 4th downs, unless it's like an obvious, hey, we can run the football here. They're not really going to go for it, which could be, maybe that changes when they get better pass catchers out there. But that one, I I think is more egregious than the very last one where they don't have any timeout. They have 2 timeouts instead of 3.
Yeah.
So the clock is a more of a factor at that point than the second to last drive where I think they should have gone for that one.
Yeah, I agree. I felt like, yes, of course they didn't get a first down. They were on 4th down, but I felt like they had a really strong positive momentum. Whereas the last one, like the 3rd and 10, everyone's losing their minds. Is it a penalty? Is that a PI? Like, I think they had the momentum at that time when the one you were talking about to go for it. I don't mind they didn't in the second one. And just, yeah, okay, so you go for it. I don't know how much trust I have in this receiver. Like, let's say the Cardinals just line up and they're going to sell out and blitz. Who's picking it up? Can you be sure that they can? I'm not. Are you sure anyone can get open? I'm not. Are you sure they're going to catch it? I'm not. I understand why they'd go for what probably is a higher percentage idea and option in Dicker.
Yeah. Yeah. So I thought there were a couple of decisions from Harbaugh that I didn't agree with, and I think that's been the case, but is what it is. Buffalo Boys, the team is a bottom 5 as always. Season is over, he says.
Oh. Well, bottom 5. No, I've seen the rest of these.
Have you watched the other teams?
Have you considered the Carolina Panthers, the Raiders, most of what the Browns are? Yeah. Maybe they fall that way in the AFC, but in the entire NFL, no, I think there's far worse.
Yeah. I understand the frustration, but there's a lot of football left to be had. And the Chargers do have a formula that can be successful. They just have to basically not make mistakes.
Yes.
Caesar feels like the team got caught looking ahead to the Saints. The Saints are bad. They are not a good football team. So I don't think that is true. Rager should have been cut at the 2-minute warning in the first half.
Yeah, I don't think they were caught looking ahead. That's even a home game for them.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think so.
Yeah, the Saints are bad. If they were playing the Chiefs next week, sure. But the Saints are not a good football team. The Saints just lost by 23 at home to the Broncos.
That's true.
They are not in a good situation.
No, not at all.
Black Blazers again was hoping for Bosa to be on, not Keenan. If Bosa can't stay on the field, it doesn't matter if this team needs him or not. He's proven he won't be there.
Yeah, that's fair. Frustration is there. They took a huge swing and they've missed tremendously so far. And you're laughing.
I'm cracking up. The Jalen Reagor play was the Chargers' first 40-yard pass of the season, and he fumbled.
Is it? Did McConkey not get 40 on the Chiefs? No,
it was like 38.
Yeah. And then the Fahoko catch was like 38 or 39.
Yeah.
Vidal was 38. So yeah, I guess they did finally go for 40 and then they fumbled it.
Oh man, that is too perfect on so many reasons. I did not make that connection. Shout out Sholaman for that one. NSN in here says Will Dissly season. He was fantastic. It was great to see. He deserves a lot of credit for tonight's performance.
Yeah, he does.
Mike Williams odds exponentially higher now. We talked about that, but do appreciate that. And again, goodbye rushing offense. We hardly knew ye.
Yeah, I was curious how much they were going to lean into the pass tonight. Even I, after making that one of the coaching points that we talked about for our preview, I didn't think they would throw it 39 times tonight. They threw it 39 times tonight. In a game, they scored 15. I maybe would have guessed one of those things, not both.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Buffalo Boys, man, very upset by today's game. As a true Herbert fan, he should leave LA.
Well, first of all, no, because I don't want to cover that team. So selfishly, please stay here. If this doesn't work out, I'm not saying he should leave, but there's an alternate universe, even with like a Phillip Rivers, where I wish he were with a team, an organization that maybe could have supported him en route to a Super Bowl. Still could happen, but if things don't work out with Harbaugh, yeah, I wish that Herbert would find a way to win somewhere. I don't know.
Listen, man, Justin Herbert loves Jim Harbaugh, and Jim Harbaugh loves Justin Herbert. Like Chris Rim wrote about it. It's a legit bromance. So whether you think he should leave depends, like Tyler mentioned. If you think the Harbaugh regime can work out, then yeah. But ideally, Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert are together for the next 10 years, and they have several successful seasons that end in great playoff runs, and then we don't have this conversation. I generally have been very pleased with like the outlook, and I think they have exceeded expectations so far that I've had from a stylistic standpoint, from a defensive standpoint. I think this team is on the right track. It just sucks because tonight was an awful, awful look. But if you look at the first 6 games as a whole, I think there's a lot more positives than negatives. And I think we've seen some great development from certain players. We've seen when things are clicking on offense, it looks very, very good. But I get it. It definitely is difficult to not be super upset at the way that game ended. And we spoke for 45 minutes about how mad we were. So I get it.
Yep, totally. They might finish with the exact same record that we thought they would, but it's still frustrating when we're in the moment.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Christian Hernandez in here. Our offense will be great next year. He says that just need guards and weapons. Harbaugh and Ortiz will get some as they continue to build. The scheme works well.
You lost me at the scheme part, I think, but until proven otherwise. But yes, they will be better next year, just in terms of personnel. Like they will have more, I hope, more successful group on offense.
Yeah, they'll be able to go out and upgrade along the interior offensive line. I mean, they're going to have potentially $100 million in cap space. Maybe that goes and buys you a better starting caliber tight end, and you can kind of go from there. But they also need some defensive pieces as well. So I think the Chargers are probably going to get to a point similar to the Ravens where the Greg Roman experience is going to run its course, and it's going to be very interesting to see if Jim Harbaugh has a similar answer to what John Harbaugh is doing, because the Baltimore Ravens look like they are completely unstoppable on offense right now. I don't know what the final score was, but last time I checked, they had 41 points up. So, Todd Monken pushing a lot of great buttons right now.
Yeah. Yep.
Caesar in here. QJ wasn't able to suit up tonight, but will drafting him over Flowers haunt this team?
That specific switch will not. Like Zay Flowers had 11 yards tonight, so it's not like it was. I mean, he's had a much better season than QJ. No, that specifically won't haunt them. It's the lack of, honestly, in that class, a tight end, and you can say Kincaid at that point. Any one of those tight ends. Just like I think this past class for the Chargers, I feel worse about it every single week that passes. They didn't take any interior offensive lineman, and in particular a center, in a great class.
Yeah, now we can talk about it. Sam Mustipher as the backup center is crazy. Crazy. This man was a street free agent. I love what Joe Ortiz has done so far to this season. He's pushed a lot of great buttons. They've signed a lot of really smart deals. Handing your backup center unquestionably to Brendan Hymas, and then 7 weeks into the season be like, no, Sam Mustipher is our backup center now. That's crazy talk to me. Bradley Bozeman has stayed relatively healthy throughout his career, but if we get to a point where Sam Mustipher has to play, that's going to be really, really bad. We already saw what it looked like, and granted, he played out of position, to be fair to him, but he is a fine third center on the practice squad. Handing him backup duties is awful for me. That just does not compute to me. I would love to have a Bo Limmer right now who looks great for the Rams, and he was a 6th round draft pick. I'm not even asking for like a 2nd round pick of a center. Like Hunter Norsad was available in the 5th round. Mason McCormick was available in the 5th round. He can play center. So it's like the one blemish from Ortiz to me that is just like really, really standing out is what he's done or not done at backup center.
Yeah, the whole situation has been mostly mismanaged. The signing of Bozeman was great, but we thought, okay, like, so what's the competition? Like, that's great, good, smart. What's the competition? None. Oh, okay. So Hymas is the backup center, who technically was a guard, who was formerly a tackle. Now he's center. Okay, who's competing with him? Oh, nobody. Okay. And then now it's Mustipher. Well, who's competing with Mustipher? Not really anybody. Oh, okay. It's just like we're that like Bozeman hasn't played great, but we are that close to a disaster class offense that's just gonna kill their entire offense. And then we felt that anyway, if Bozeman went down, but yeah, gotta be better.
Yeah, Brendan Hymas and Jordan McFadden being healthy scratches for Sam Mustipher, bad sign for those guys. But drafting Flowers or not drafting Flowers, like it's fine with me. If you really think about it, they have Ladd in that specific role. And honestly, I kind of would rather have Ladd. Like I do think Ladd was a better prospect, and I think he has been a better receiver to this point of the season. He just hasn't gotten the volume that Zay Flowers is getting in Baltimore. So as long as Quentin continues on this trajectory, I don't think it will haunt this team. But we didn't love the decision at the time, and there were other players at that point that I would have rather had instead. So we'll see what happens. Quentin has looked much better, much more comfortable this year. He's improving. I think under this regime that can continue.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, not drafting a tight end that year, not drafting a center this year. That's tough.
Mm-hmm.
How has the run game plummeted so much from the first couple of weeks? They were very good last week. They had the fourth highest success rate last week, and J.K. Dobbins was this close from hitting 100 yards against the Broncos defense. So go figure. You run the ball great against the awesome Denver Broncos defense, and then against an awful Arizona Cardinals defense, you do not run very well. So
yeah,
I don't know. It was weird. I don't understand what happened tonight from a run game perspective. So we'll see.
Yeah, surprised too because they were so successful passing. Like, okay, like the things opened things up for the run, right? It didn't even happen there.
Yeah, we are still getting super chats.
41 super chats, man. I'm gonna be here till midnight.
Yes. NSN, I think we finished 8 and 9. Is that too pessimistic?
No, that's not pessimistic at all. I think you're hovering right about in that right range. I think they'll still win another game given the schedule in front of them, but yeah, 8 and 9 does not too pessimistic.
No, I think that's in the realm of outcomes. I mean, we've seen what this offense can look like with some injuries. They were relatively healthy tonight up front and still couldn't run the football. So, yeah. Last week I said they had a good chance of getting to 10 wins. Today I still think like 9 and 8 is probably where they end up at in the AFC this year. That's probably still a playoff spot. But I think we are all kind of realizing the limitations of this roster right now.
Yeah, if they had won this game, I'd feel like, okay, we're just going to walk all the way till the Bengals game with wins. Now it's like,
yeah, that's the thing. This part of their schedule is just right for some, like if they win this game, you play the Saints next week with Spencer Rattler, no Chris Olave, no Rashid Shaheed. I mean, Marquez Valdez-Scantling was just signed off the street, and he's probably their wide receiver 1 next week. They should win that game. And then the Browns have one of the worst offenses in the league. They should win that game. So if you rattle off 4 wins in a row after beating the Broncos, you're in an awesome spot in the AFC. They can still go on a streak here, but it obviously just becomes much more difficult. So you get to that stretch of Cincinnati, Baltimore, Kansas City. You have to split one of those. You have to win at least one of those games to get into the playoffs, in my opinion.
Whew. After tonight's game, it's tough to see, but
yeah. Mackenzie, hypothetically here, offensive styles / coordinators you'd like this team to target when the Roman offense maybe doesn't meet expectations.
You know, somewhere there's a video where we talked about a bunch of them, and we kind of like cried when we mentioned Greg Roman, but there were like 9 other offensive coordinator options that we mentioned. Tanner Engstrand again. There was another Kubiak in there somewhere.
Yeah, and the Kubiak in New Orleans might be looking for a job based on how much New Orleans is going to shred this thing down or not. But I think Harbaugh has a very particular way he wants to play football. So you've got to be able to have the run game roots, but you also have to bring a little bit more of a modern passing attack that it just feels like there's no like sequencing of events for the passing game. It just feels like here's a random play, Justin go bail us out, here's another random play. Whereas the run game is like, okay, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this, here's that, here's that. Everything is sequenced very, very well. So you got to be able to marry the two concepts there. Tanner Angstrand, we were big fans of because of that potential of him being in Detroit, where he could bring the Detroit Lions passing game and the Jim Harbaugh running game and everything from his experience. So, yeah, I mean, they're not firing Greg Roman, I don't think, anytime soon. But when they get to that point, it's got to be somebody who can bring a modern passing attack to Justin Herbert's right arm.
Joe Lombardi. Nailed it.
Nailed it. Kendall Larson in here with a big super chat. We appreciate that. This game hurt. Wow. What do you guys do in this situation? In the GM chair, what trades would you make? Coaching changes, biggest draft needs. I know we're not there yet. Just trying to see a vision for the future.
Trade for a weapon this year. Spend your first round pick on literally any weapon as well. Take probably some sort of offensive lineman in the second round, and then go ham on defense. Spend big on defense. Well, I don't know. No, sign a center. Trade for someone this year. Sign that center next year. I don't know.
It's way too early for this, but
there's so many spots.
Yeah, it's way too early for me to look at this list, but you know, we'll see what happens. I think in the short term, you know, we can do a video differently about like long-term moves at some point. They're gonna have $100 million in cap space. They're gonna have a lot of cash to spend on people, and they're currently slated to have over 10 draft picks. So that's even after the Taylor Heineke trade, after the Elijah Molden trade, etc. So these guys, Kenneth Murray, Michael Davis, and etc., Gerald Everett, they got to keep playing well and keep hitting snaps for them to get those compensatory picks. But they can be very, very aggressive in free agency, which is why I think they can, you know, afford to spend some draft pick capital right now and go get some moves. I think we're kind of on the same page that you need some kind of extra pass catcher here. And frankly, I don't think I really care in what form that comes, whether that's a tight end, whether that's a running back, like a Travis Etienne, for example, who's kind of, you know, on the chopping block in Jacksonville, whether that's a wide receiver. You got to give Justin Herbert another capable pass catcher that he can rely upon. That's probably priority number one for me, just because I think Jesse Minter has shown that he can continue to develop these defensive pieces. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? Like, you want to give Jesse Minter more resources next year, but at the same time, like, they're only going to go as far as Justin Herbert is going to take them. Mm-hmm. So you also want to give Justin Herbert enough resources for him to feel in a comfortable situation where you can overcompensate for some of these offensive scheme issues and things like that. So
exactly,
it's a delicate balance, but Joe Ortiz has a lot of resources next year to work with where he can pick and choose. But in the short term, if they have to choose a trade, it probably needs to be an offensive weapon that can help take this offense from right now. They're probably like the 20th best offense. Just like, you know, if you take out the 2 games of Justin Herbert not healthy, that's probably where they're at. If you can go get a piece that makes you the 14th best offense, that's a playoff team in the AFC, and you can potentially be a frisky playoff team after that.
Yeah, definitely. You spend big, draft big to overcompensate for where the scheme cannot pick it up.
Yeah. Good question, though. NSN, without Slater, Alt, we lose every game, so no regrets. Yeah, we spoke about those two in our film review for earlier this week. They're playing fantastic football. I hope the sack that PFF has credited for him right now for Joe Alt goes away, because I don't think it really was his. But those two guys are great. That you have the foundational pieces there. Next year, you just hopefully have some more resources to build on the interior.
Yes.
Christian Hernandez, the Roman hate is overstated. One more draft and free agency, and they will build the Baltimore model. Ravens reverted back to the same Roman stuff after losing a couple of games this year early.
Ravens reverted back to the same Roman stuff after losing a couple of games this year early. As in, like,
they're running the football a lot more, but they also have Derrick Henry.
Correct.
Quite a lot. Derrick Henry's on pace for like 2,300 yards right now, by the way, which is crazy.
He's insane.
I think the thing that Todd Monken is doing well there is he is doing what we were talking about, where he is blending the modern passing offense with the rushing attack. And that's just the piece that is missing. I do think the Greg Roman offense can work in the NFL once you get better pieces into it. But we've seen what the Greg Roman offense ceiling is in the NFL, and that again, that can work. You can have a very high end offense with it. Eventually, it just becomes it just kind of got to a boiling point in Baltimore where they needed to evolve, and coaches who kind of follow that pathway generally continue to be that. So, they'll be better next year, and then in 2026 they'll probably be good again, and then 2027 they'll probably get back to a lot of these same issues that we're harkening now. That's just kind of who Greg Roman has been in the NFL, and that's who he probably always will be.
Yeah. Yep.
So buckle up if you want Greg Roman fired. It's going to be a long time. Sholoman says Dan Mullen is OC. Good run game with passing.
Are we all Googling Dan Mullen?
He is the former Florida coach, former Mississippi State coach, former Utah offensive coordinator. Extremely different than Greg Roman. He runs the spread 4 receiver type offense. So it's very, very different. But
is there a connection?
No. I don't believe so.
Scary. Did he coach Alex Smith once at Utah?
He did, yes. He was the offensive coordinator under Urban Meyer.
There you go. That's my loose 49ers connection.
I mean, I'm sure they know each other. Dan Mullen was in college for 20 years, but personality also an issue there, as NSN points out. Dan Mullen's very stubborn. Him and Urban Meyer had some legendary shouting matches that people have talked about over the years. So, but he does know offense, and he probably should be a head coach in college football. And Florida probably should never have fired him because they are an awful, awful program without him.
Cool. Good to know.
Anyways. 43 super chats.
Oh my God, we're done. Holy cow.
You guys are awesome, man. That is, I love that we come together in a game after this, and you guys can send us all of the support like that. So we greatly appreciate that. It's been an awesome chat tonight. Ton of people in here. Primetime games, of course, tend to do that, but obviously a disappointing night for the Chargers.
Yeah, but that's incredible. 43. I mean, I was stoked at 15 or 11 or whatever we were at, and then you guys kept us here for another half an hour with these super chats. And I seriously really do appreciate it. It does lift our spirits during a loss. Hopefully we were able to answer your questions in some useful manner.
Yeah. And I apologize. I'm sure there were some other good comments in here. Just we're not able to get to them. Tyler, any other final thoughts before we head out tonight?
Jay Gee is, I am sleepy. I'm also Asian. So that is just a 2-for-1.
I saw a couple of the jokes when we were talking about both of us eating rice today. So that was also funny.
Yeah.
Yep, but it's 10:22. I'm usually asleep at this time. So, I got to stay up now and edit this episode and get to waking up early. So we appreciate you guys so much. We are going to be back here on Wednesday this week for our film review, and then Thursday for our nice Thomas Martinez coming in.
Thanks a lot for the Scott Matlock super chat number. That's great.
Appreciate it. So we'll be back with our game preview for the Saints game on Thursday. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Appreciate all the super chats. It's been a ton of fun tonight, even despite the loss. So thank you so much. All right, this has been another episode of the Guilty as Charged podcast. We'll see you next time. As always, bolt up.